Hello, Integral Math. I would like to respond to this video you made about libertarians. I just wanted to open by saying that I enjoy your channel and I really like your videos. Thank you for providing me with a different perspective on so many issues. And with that, I would like to start my reply.
Earlier, the comment was written in response to my saying that libertarians are the biggest entitlement whores that exist. And the reason being is they enjoy the largesse of a stable and successful productive society, and they don't want to contribute.
It's not that libertarians don't want to contribute, but that we should not be forced to contribute.
If you don't like the fruits of statists, get the fuck off the internet. Just saying, don't use public roadways.
Our society is not the product of the state. The market has produced the wealth and stability that we see around us. Furthermore, the internet is the perfect example of the difference between the state and the market. It is only thanks to market principles that the internet became something other than a typical government program, which would be inefficient, overcapitalized, and not directed towards socially useful purposes. There are two links below on this particular topic, since it does come up so much. The first is a discussion on the creation of the internet and how little the state actually did to foster its development. And the second link is a lecture about how government funding of R&D actually hurts the sciences. And the creation of the internet is specifically discussed within this lecture. The lecture itself is only 20 minutes long, and the rest of the video is just a Q&A. So if you just watch the first 20 minutes, for anyone who's interested, the link will be below. As far as the roads are concerned, we're forced to pay for them. So why shouldn't we use them? If you were forced to buy a Taco Bell beefy 5-layer burrito, there's nothing hypocritical about then eating it.
Saying I don't want to use the United States Parcel Service doesn't mean I don't want to use any mail service. Okay, so having a mail service is fine, but if it happens to be the case that it's regulated by the state, well, now it's in some sense corrupt. Okay.
The Postal Service itself isn't a problem. Neither are the roads or even the police. The problem arises because these services are paid for by taxes. Taxes are, in a very real way, theft. If you refuse to pay taxes, the state sends an officer to kidnap you. If you refuse to go, you will be forced. If you defend yourself, you will be murdered. The state's actions are illegitimate because it uses violence against peaceful people. Again, the problem is not with the services, but with the violence. Below is a New York Times story about a local mafia that was issuing a mob tax. For a fun exercise, try to differentiate the mob tax from a state tax. And yes, both the mob and the state masquerade as honest institutions that are just providing a service.
Whatever. So you like having the service available. Your issue is with who controls it, who does the oversight. Because no matter what system you construct, the hierarchy is going to arise. And just the codification of that hierarchy is, well, that's the state.
The state is different from a company. A company can persuade you to buy a product, but the state can use violence to fund its projects. It is the use of violence against peaceful people they object to, not the particular institution providing the service.
I mean, there's no moral dimension to driving on the left side of the street versus the right side of the street. But because the convention is what it is, and so you had to choose one side or the other, you can't just let everybody decide, I'll go wherever the hell I want.
But these laws do have a moral dimension. There's a difference between voluntarily following a social convention and being threatened with death if you do not comply with arbitrary laws. This becomes more serious when considering drug laws, which few people would agree to be bound by voluntarily. The imposition of these laws elucidates the moral issue behind any law. Again, my problem isn't with the laws themselves, but with how they are imposed on peaceful individuals. We can solve these social problems without arbitrary impositions. For example, in your video about driving, an agreement could be made between the people who own the road and the people who drive on them, that when you drive on the highway, you agree to drive on a certain side of the road. And it would be just kind of like when you go into a restaurant and order a meal. There's an implicit agreement that you're going to pay for the meal, even if you don't tell your waiter, I'm going to pay for this.
As the drawing behind me has, here's where, say, you're uber libertarian lives. This is a state border. And I kidnap someone from here, and I take them across the state line, and I put them in this house. That's why they look sad. Because they've been kidnapped, you see. The libertarian doesn't own this property. So in order to get to his loved one, to rescue him, he's going to have to recruit his little posse, and they'll get on their little chuck wagons, making sure not to use any state roads, and all the while not trespassing on anyone's private property, because these are important issues. Except they're not going to give two flying shits about any of that. They're going to take the most direct, the most efficient route, rather. May not be the most direct. To get there, driving over anyone's property they have to, all the while, in order to rescue this person's loved one.
The man has been kidnapped, so getting him back is self-defense. Because he is unable to defend himself, we can step in and defend him. You initiated the force, so you yourself are open to force. For example, hitting is against the non-aggression principle, but this only applies to initiation of force. Libertarians have no real problem with violence, only with using violence against peaceful people. If trespassing over a third party's land is necessary, then libertarians would most likely continue forward with the knowledge that they would later have to pay reparations for the crime of trespassing, which would be relatively small in the scope of this situation.
Be that in the libertarian utopia wouldn't exist. That road would just fucking miracle itself into existence on the goodwill of private, hard-earned work, because all...
This is a common objection to the free market. Fortunately, there is no magic involved. If there is demand for roads, the market will produce them. I'm not going to go into it here, simply because so much has already been written on the topic. However, I will post 2 links below if anyone is interested in how a free market would produce roads, and has produced roads in the past.
All of these libertarians are atomic people. They're the kind of people who, before they were born, jumped out of their mother's vaginas, built themselves a house, jumped back in the vaginas, so when it's time for them to be born, they would have a house that they had built to be born into.
Libertarians are not against collective actions. No man is an island, and that includes libertarians. The difference is that libertarians prefer that their roads, houses, and fire trucks be built voluntarily. I would rather pay people to build me a house, rather than live in a house that was built using forced labor. While I recognize that the house built with forced labor would be more expensive and lower quality, I also recognize that using violence against innocent people is simply to get what you want is morally wrong. And this is regardless of quality or cost.
Oh, fuck it. Let's just get rid of the whole system and start anew. Like, we have no knowledge of human interaction. We don't have the sum total of human history to look at and say, well, that works, that doesn't work.
No, we do understand human interactions. We have analyzed what works best, and that is why we advocate against centralizing violence into the hands of a few politically well-connected individuals. Have a good day.